All-time highs yet again in the market with the S&P up 0.78% today, closing at 6358.91. The market gapped up this morning, and after a brief dip, we saw basically a rally ripping through the previous highs back on Tuesday, back above the 50-period EMA on the 15-minute chart, and we can see a resumption of the uptrend that lasted into the end of the day, tagging this big gamma exposure at the 6350 strike. So a lot of this gamma exposure at the 6350 strike is 0 DTE, so a lot of that's going to be rolling off today. And actually, if we zoom out, we can see that the next big level is at the 6400 strike, and after that, it's at the 6500 strike. So these are the next two largest gamma exposure concentrations. They don't look that big because they're being dwarfed by all the 0 DTE GEX, most of which is going to be rolling off here at the 6350, like I mentioned. So far, it looks like the two big earnings reports today, Google and Tesla, are doing relatively well. No major negative effects, at least in the market overall, from those reports. And so a continuation move into 6,400 over the next day or two is possible. Just over 40 points to go on the S&P to reach that big 6,400 strike. That would put us right up into our upper dealer cluster zone. This has shifted higher after we broke out of this range between 6,200 and 6,300, where we saw the market consolidating for the first half of July. But there could be selling pressure from option dealers as they sell shares of the underlying security. In this case, with the S&P, that would be S&P futures, in order to hedge their options position. So we could see some pressure here as we approach the 6,400 strike. That's something to be aware of, and that could be the initiation of a potential pullback. We don't want to get too bearish yet, but we are continuing to manage our hedges in order to protect our overall portfolio, which is tilted to the long side. We continue adding new long positions and rolling up our hedges. And so we do have hedge protection below these levels. And so if there is some headline event or if earnings take a turn for the worst, we will have some protection overall. By the way, you can track our trades in real time and see all the moves we're making in our options portfolios by heading over to geeksoffinance.com. You can sign up and become a member. Link in the description below.
Thanks, Anthony. A wild and crazy day out there at certain times. And yesterday we mentioned that IWM and QQQ had been moving in opposite directions. In the case of IWM, it was just above the whole moving average. In the case of QQQ, just below the whole moving average. So looking at IWM today, we started out with a gap up above the whole. It opened the door to IWM possibly reaching this 230 upper dealer cluster zone and large GEX cluster that we see here. So today's high reached within 1% of that, just below 227. We don't see a lot of meaningful GEX above 230. You can see the GEX really diminishes and drops off as you look toward 235, 240, and most of the volume that's noteworthy was lower. We still see this volume at 200 that's noticeable, but this could change quickly with the amount of momentum we see and how quickly we are reaching these targets.
Thanks, Sean. One of our favorite risk-on indicators continues to be Palantir. Palantir up 3.72% today, closing at 154.62. I've got the 15-minute chart pulled up, and you can see basically today's trading action recouped all the losses that we saw over the previous three trading sessions. So we did see some hesitation and a pullback right into this 145 level, and that ultimately served as a support. We saw a steep bounce back through and now above the 150 strike. Looking at the total gamma exposure picture, gamma exposure is concentrated between 155 and 160, and that's really been the case over the last couple of weeks. So now we're sitting right in the middle of that, and the skew continues to be higher. And so just from a chart perspective, it does look like Palantir has the potential for a breakout here above 155. That could potentially put us in the near term up into this 160 level. So Palantir is a name that we've been actively trading and discussing in our community Discord, and we'll be monitoring the open tomorrow for a potential tactical short-term trade in Palantir, potentially up into this 160 level.
We saw some interesting changes with the VIX, even if subtle. I have the weekly chart pulled up for the VIX currently, and with what appears to be some sort of capitulation, dropping from close to 18 down to now almost 15 in barely 2 days. we're approaching this weekly whole moving average. Now, the whole is declining. It has not yet made much of a turn to the upside, but I still think the line itself has validity, and that's currently at 1485. I'll also briefly point out we're almost to the bottom of the 4-hour Kellner channel, which is currently at 1511. And you can look back and you can see any time the VIX reached an area that was even close to the bottom of the channel, that tended to mark a low for the VIX. So that might be the downside risk for volatility at this point. So on to some more interesting aspects of the VIX. We saw a sharp increase in GEX from negative 132.6 million up to a positive 58.5 million. So a pretty big swing. And it's the first time the VIX has been in positive GEX territory, at least over the last month, if not longer. So this is something to keep an eye on. It may be a signal that we are closer to the end of this rally, even if we continue to see very bullish headlines and the market pushing higher for a day or two beyond this.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, this low volatility environment has been especially helpful to some of the high flyers like Robinhood. Robinhood today only up 0.23%, closing at 102.08. Of course, Robinhood has made a huge move over the last few weeks. We've seen a pullback ever since this big high back on Friday, and now we appear to be consolidating just above the 100 strike. So we see the largest gamma exposure is currently negative GEX at the 100 strike, but we do see large volume coming in today at these higher strikes all the way up to 115. And this is pretty sizable volume, over 10,000 contracts at the 115 strike. So that's way out of the money, but still big volume in the options market. So there's a lot of interest up here at these higher strikes. And we can see that basically above the 100 strike, it's all positively skewed gamma exposure. It's above the zero gamma exposure line. And so I think, it may take another day or two of consolidation here, but if we can see a breakout above some of these moving averages in the near term, I think we could easily make a move back up to the 110 strike, and potentially, if market momentum overall continues to the upside, even this 115 strike could come into play. So that's something we're going to be looking for heading into the next few weeks. And I'm looking more for a tactical trade, short-term in nature more than anything. So that's something that we're going to be looking for potentially for an entry either tomorrow or Friday. We'll be discussing this in our community Discord. I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to check that out for free.
Thanks, Anthony. Tesla, obviously a name on a lot of people's minds tonight as they just reported earnings after the close. And it looks like there's a little bit of weakness after hours. I'm currently showing just below 317 as the current price. Tesla did have positive GEX, and we do have this big positive GEX cluster at 350. A lot of volume there today as well. Now, obviously, if the 317 price holds into the open, that's not only below the 328 whole moving average, but it's also a little bit closer to our lower dealer cluster zone at 310. We did see a lot of volume at 300 today as well, so maybe keep an eye on 300 tomorrow morning, depending on where Tesla is trading. We'll want to keep an eye on how participants might shift their options positions, and that might inform us in terms of how we want to position possibly for a day trade if there's a lot of volatility. So just keep an eye on this. Know that if we start to see some sort of upside move develop, it might be headed toward 350. If it's maintaining the 317 or lower price that we see after hours now, I would certainly look at 300 as a possible area, for a speculative long play. So definitely something we'll be watching into tomorrow.
And for a limited time, you can get $300 off our yearly Portfolio Manager tier subscription. Use code SUMMER2025 at checkout. We've got a few spots remaining, but this promotion ends soon, so definitely take advantage of it while you can. Members get access to our Gamma Exposure dashboard, our option flow analytics tools, as well as our algorithmic trading strategies. And you'll also get access to the premium channels in our community Discord. There's a ton of great traders in there sharing their own trade setups, and you can also track our trades in real time as we manage our options portfolio. I'll put links in the description below for all of that so you guys can check it out. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.